Welcome back, everyone. I am iamxeracon. Your eyes do not deceive you. This is actually a second video that I am giving you all today, sort of to make up for the absence of videos that I said I was going to make, but also because I actually attempted to do this video twice. um, First time was because it was way too hot for me to record at that time. Second reason uh, was the audio, which I mentioned before. This is the third time mentioning it, but I wasn't able to record it, and now I have the opportunity, so I decided, why not? My equipment's still set up for recording, so let's do this. Okay, this is going to be a top 10 list of the worst games that I have ever played. Granted, the rules from my top 10, well, most of the rules from my top 10 favorite games of all time apply to this list. The first rule being that that the games on here only count because I've played them. Well, that's a horrible way of describing it, but basically, I can't say a game is bad if I've never played it. I know there are games that are bad out there, but I haven't played them, so I really can't say if I feel that they would be bad or not. For example, there are a couple games that some people may not have liked, but I feel that they were pretty good. So, sort of that thing. It's basically it's beauty is held in the eye of the beholder, and like stuff like that. So basically, these are games that I have played, and I can't. And even if I think a particular game is bad, I can't say it's bad until I've actually played it. So that's one of them. Two, there aren't going to be any ties. Uh, Although for this list, I couldn't really find any ties for us games being bad. Um, I was going to put in the rule about games being from the same franchise, but unfortunately, that didn't actually apply because I actually had to add games from the same franchise uh, because I really, well, because the games I've played, as far as like from what I thought were horrible, they would either be mediocre games or just a lot of games that I felt were bad, and some of them were from the same. A couple of them were from the same series, so I couldn't do that. So I was stuck trying to figure out what to do, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to throw that third rule out the window because it's not like it's the best games, so it's the worst. So it's going to be harder for me. It was actually harder for me to pick out a list of the worst games I've played than picking out the best games, surprisingly. Just find those games that I felt were really bad. I really couldn't do that with the games I played because a lot of the games I felt were either basically the games I played, the worst I felt they were either meh at worst, basically. Because for the most part, I have I give games a somewhat fair chance. And you'll hear some of this in the list. But yeah, so I had a hard time picking out bad games. But that's pretty much it. And another rule I was going to mention, which I should mention, is that I am not going to include shovelware games. So by that I mean games that are instinctively going to be bad, like bad indie games or like party games or something like that. I'm not going to pick anything out like that, with the exception of one game. That's actually going to kick us off on this list, which is Hold Your Fire, what was that? a game about responsibility. This is a game that is on the Nintendo eShop, and when I first saw this game, it had, I think, 1.5 star ratings, and I thought, wow, that's bad. But I went to see what the game was about because the title, um, it caught my attention. It said a game about responsibility, so I'm thinking, oh, is this a game where you're responsible for not shooting your own teammates? Like, is this? I mean, from what I saw in the a couple of pictures, I thought it looks like a space shooter game, a 2D space shooter game. So I thought, huh, that's interesting. Maybe you're gonna have like teammates, not like I didn't think it would be, live, like playing with other players, but the CPU will be playing with you. And I thought, huh, that's pretty interesting. Maybe I should be careful about like where I shoot at, because I don't want to shoot my teammates, or I don't want to shoot any friendlies, like perhaps maybe our base, or just civilians or something like that. So I looked at it, thought, but this game doesn't. Why does it get 1.5 stars? And then later, about maybe 3 months later, I see the game's on sale, and I see also that it's had 4 stars. And I thought, huh, so before it was 1.5, now it's 4. Why? Is the game, did someone, just one person, just a couple people think that the game was bad, and then now it's people think it's pretty good, or maybe the people playing it, thought that it wasn't worth much. I didn't know. Although for some reason I went and I purchased this game. Downloaded, wait for it to start up, and then when I started up the game, I received a letter from the people who, they're called Star Command, alright? And the first thing I automatically thought of when I read the message and said, first they give you a description of what you're doing and stuff, how you're supposed to be patrolling and protecting people, but they say that if you mess up, you will be terminated. And also you're a space cadet. So it's not like you've been doing this for a while. You're a cadet. You are pretty much fresh out of the Space Academy, and you're just a rookie basically. And they're saying, if you mess up, we will kill you. And then said, love Star Command. All right. And so when I first thought of Star Command, I instantly thought of this. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. I mean, and I think that they should really feel bad for putting something which we fondly remember, Star Command, into their horrible game. Now, why do I think it's horrible? Because the game is basically a troll game, alright? The game doesn't really have a start, middle, end. The game is basically like an arcade game, whereas you're really just trying to get a high score. But the game is a troll game because in order to play the game, you have to play it perfectly. And also, what I mean by that, you have to follow all the rules that the game does not tell you, but you figure out on your own. And you figure out the hard way. So, first game I play, I'm like flying through space, and I see a ship coming, and it looks menacing, it looks hostile. So I think, oh, this is the enemy ship. I must shoot it. So what do? I shoot it. And next thing I know, game over. You don't get any lives, there are no continues, it's just, you mess up once. Game over. And it said, you shot a civilian ship. And then basically because of that, you're terminated. Alright? You're dead for doing that. Star Command executes you because you shot a civilian ship. And I'm thinking, what? So, okay, what I do next? I start the game up again, and I see a different ship. And I'm like, do I shoot you? Do I not shoot you? Do I shoot you? Do I not shoot you? How do I know who to shoot? Because that first ship, it looked very menacing. It didn't look like a friendly ship. And then you're saying, oh, this is a very friendly ship. I'm thinking, your ship looks evil, and I'm not supposed to shoot you? And then, next thing I know, there's another ship that comes on, and oh no, what happens? Another ship comes by. It shoots at me. I'm trying to get out of the way, but I'm trying to shoot at the same time, and so I fly out of the way because I can't shoot it anymore because it's too close. And next thing I know, game over, because apparently the enemy ship. This was the enemy ship because it was shooting at me, and also the only way you know you're supposed to shoot a ship is if it shoots first. If it shoots first, you shoot it. But because that ship passed by, it was able to. It said that the villain was able to escape and create a weapon that was able to decimate an entire planet, and because of that, Star Command blames me and has me executed. Alright, first off, if they're able to build a weapon that can destroy a planet, first off, you automatically know that it needs time that they're going to need time to build this weapon to destroy a planet. So how has Star Command not found out about this beforehand? You know, they could have done something, but no, it's my fault. And also the fact that they know that this guy is responsible for this, and they haven't tried to stop him, and the fact that, you know, because I'm just a cadet, remember, I'm a rookie, and the fact that, you know, that happened, I'm responsible for all of this. No. So the game does other things to troll with you, like if you crash into a ship, even if you're stuck crashing into the enemy ship, because you're like, okay, I don't want to get the ending where it says that they build another ship, so I'm like, I will sacrifice myself to stop this ship. Then basically Star Command says that like, this is a recording of what you're not supposed to do when you're like flying through space, and that you crash the ship and stuff. I'm like, I saved a planet by crashing into the ship. I sacrificed myself, and yet Star Command is basically saying, look at this idiot, he can't fly a ship properly. But yeah, that is why the game is on this list. Even though I said I want to play shovelware games and stuff like that, this game was just wow, it was bad. But the next game on my list is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Now, some of you might be thinking, why is a Zelda game on this list, Xeracon? And to that, I have to say, because the game, I did not like it. And you might be thinking, what do you not like about it? Well, for the first thing, it was a side scroller, but you could say it was also the second game they made, so they don't have a standard to set. They didn't have a standard. And to that, I also say, true, but the gameplay wasn't that great. And also, even though it has the RPG elements of leveling up, I didn't like that, because I felt that, or at least when I played it, it seemed that whenever I took damage, I lost EXP. And the fact that I worked hard to gain that EXP only to have it lost, that irritates me pretty much. I mean, again, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't played the game in a while. I do not intend to play it again. But it's just that experience was not a good one for me. There's very little that I could say is good about it, other than the fact that it gave us the Zelda 2 thing, which we know from Smash Brothers Melee. But yeah, that game, I just really did not. I wasn't feeling that. And so for number 8, we have Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Now, at first, I did not know anything about this game. Um, well, I heard of the game. I heard of Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I knew it was different from like some other games, but I didn't know too much about it. A friend of mine, when we went to a retro game store, I saw this game and I thought, huh, I've heard of this game, and I think it was only about $8, so I thought, why not? You know, I've heard about this game since I was younger, but never had a chance to play it, so I'm gonna get it. And then my friend said, "Oh yeah, I remember that game," and I think he said that he enjoyed it, playing it. So I thought, yeah, this will be pretty good. So I start playing the game. It starts me up, you know, at the Battle of Hoth, flying through a snow speeder, and I won't say this part was bad, but it was different from what I was expecting, because before playing this game, I had played Star Wars Rogue Squadron 1 and Battle of Naboo. And so the controls which I had from those games, I felt were better than what I had for this game. Now, granted, I think Shadows of the Empire came first, but because I'd already played those two games, the controls felt really different, and so because of that, I was like, it's not bad, but because of the way I felt for the controls of the other games I mentioned, it could have been better. And maybe they did change it. Maybe because if it came first, you know, they changed it to make it better. But I just didn't enjoy it. But then getting into the actual basic part of the game, the third-person shooter, although you can change the angles and stuff and make it even first-person, it just felt awkward and it didn't feel good. Basically, I'm just gonna put it like that. I mean, I died on the first level. I died on the first level within maybe 7 minutes. I was killed, just like that, and so that made me really salty, to say the least. And so I tried playing again, and I beat the game. Granted, it was a hard ordeal for me getting through that game, because I only beat it just to beat it. I didn't enjoy playing the game itself. Again, most of the controls were it just didn't feel right to me. And then I'm wondering, how have I heard that this game, how was the fact that I heard the game was good, but I just really didn't enjoy it. And then it's funny, because about maybe 3 or 4 months later, Pro Jared, the YouTuber Pro Jared, he did a video about Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, and he basically, in some ways, like, said some of the same things that I said about how everyone talked about the game, but it not being really that great. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because that was similar to the experience that I had. I never played the game. I heard about the game and heard some things about it, and maybe even heard that was good, but then actually going into playing it, it just didn't hold any water. So yeah, that is Shadows of the Empire for me. Next game up at number 7 is Superman 64. Now, a lot of people think this game is complete trash. Now, it's definitely not it's far from being a good game, don't get me wrong, but it's not as bad as people say it is. Like I said in my, I can't remember what video it was, but I mentioned how you can get rid of, for most of the game, you can get rid of the rings in the ring stages if you change the difficulty setting to easy. Now, at certain points near the end of the game, you have to change it to normal and then eventually hard to finish it, but you can get through most of the game without going through any rings. It changes from a ring section to follow the compass. Now, granted, some of the controls are bad. I mean, I managed it, but they definitely weren't memorable, or at least they didn't have a good. They didn't give me a good memory of the game. Combat was bad, especially with the combat animations. That was bad. A couple of the power ups were pretty much useless. Like X-ray vision, I never found a way. Even though I tried multiple times to figure out how to use the X-ray vision and where to use it, I was never successful at using X-ray vision. And then super speed, that didn't do much for me at all. I mean, there really wasn't any reason to use super speed, and you use it too quickly. Also, your power ups can be gone quickly. So yeah, the only useful ones were heat vision. That was good for just taking out enemies. Although some enemies, it was just like, I'm still shooting my heat vision at you, and you're not dead yet. And then your freeze vision, freeze breath, but it's only good for pretty much disabling bombs. I mean, I found no other reason to use it. I know you can freeze enemies, and then I think you can probably defeat them in a couple hits, but other than that, that was pretty much useless as well. The ending was horrible, to say the least. I mean, and then it didn't really even feel like you were trapped in a virtual world. It just felt that you were just playing some game for some reason, just because. Yeah, the game was bad, but it's not as bad as people say it is. And next at number 6 is Art of Fighting. Now, I first saw Art of Fighting about, I want to say 4 months ago, or on a YouTube video, just someone playing this game. I thought, that looks like a pretty decent 2D fighting game. And so I thought, it looks like some sort of Street Fighter style fighting game, but what seemed interesting was how some of the characters sort of like were able to do certain combo attacks, which seemed different from what I'd seen, because normally on Street Fighter, you just do sort of like one attack. But this one seemed interesting. I mean, the animations for the special attacks, that looked pretty good. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can find this. I saw it on Amazon for $2, and I bought it. Probably wasn't such a good idea. Now, even though I thought it looked like Street Fighter, specifically Street Fighter 2, I had no idea how close this game was to Street Fighter 2. Now, first off, the story is pretty much a ripoff of Fighting Street, the game with I think Mike, or is it Matt? Matt Hagar from Fighting Street. Was the fact that the main character, his sister, is kidnapped by this gang, and so he's going to rescue her. And he takes his best friend to help him, who's also his rival at the same time. Now, in Fighting Street, you have Matt, or Mike Hagar, going to rescue his daughter from a gang, but at the same time, he brings her boyfriend with him. I think his name's Cody. And that's pretty much the plot. But here's the thing, though, with it being related to Street Fighter. A lot of the characters and their names, well, just mostly the designs and stuff, but the character's name is Rio, and that will automatically make you think of Ryu. And his best friend is also his rival, like Ken Masters is the rival to Ryu. And then, let me think. There's one character who has the vain personality, or at least looks that way, of Vega, but fights like Chun-Li, as far as like the kicks and stuff, and he mostly uses his legs. And then, of course, you have the Rio, who sort of fights like Ryu, and he also, I think, has the same sort of like gi that Ryu also wears. Then I think another couple characters, like there's one character who I think looks like E Honda, and then I think there might also be a character who looks like Blanca. And I'm thinking, did this game really rip off Street Fighter 2? But the worst part though was that I couldn't even beat the first character in the single player mode. Like, I couldn't beat that. Now, I am not great at arcade style fighters, but I'm not bad at them either. I like to think of myself as competent. I'll put it like that. I am no way in a tournament league setting, but I'm not with people who would easily get their butt kicked at these type of games. But the fact that I couldn't beat one of the characters once, and I'm not saying that I completely beat them, I'm saying that I couldn't even like, you know how you have 2 rounds to beat. I couldn't even beat them at 1 round, let alone 2. So that shows you that this game is either extremely unfair or it's just too hard. But yeah, I did not enjoy playing this game at all, and I felt that I should have spent my $2 on something else entirely. But hey, it's now just a part of my collection. So there. At number 5 is Batman Dark Tomorrow. Now, this game was supposed to be an open world game, and you're supposed to be able to ride the Batmobile, fly in the Batjet, and even, I think, ride the Batboat. But for some reason they changed it, and it is what we know it today. But the thing though is, this game has so much potential, had so much potential to be something great. The cutscenes were phenomenal, the music was great, and the story looked like it could have been something that would be Arkham Asylum, or at least like the first Arkham Asylum game. But it wasn't, because the game was just bad. And the fact that you had to deactivate the device before you fight the final boss, otherwise you don't get the good ending, you get a bad ending. And there are multiple endings you can get. Most of them, pretty much all of them, are bad. There's only one good ending you can get. But I really don't know where they went wrong, because playing through the game, I really wanted to beat it just to say I beat this game. I mean, already knew the game was bad, but playing through it, I realized that it really was bad, if not worse than what I was expecting. No, it was worse than I was expecting, because the camera angles are horrible. I mean, it's like Resident Evil 1, but, you know, Resident Evil 1, it can be done to confuse you, make you feel vulnerable. You're not supposed to feel that way when you're playing as Batman. You're supposed to be in control of situations. But then the combat was bad. Using my items, that was horrible. I really did not enjoy my experience with this game, although it had potential initially. At number 4, we have Spider-Man 64. This is a game that I saw and thought, this is like the animated series that I've seen, that I watched growing up. So I said to myself, why not? So I bought the game, um, and I couldn't get off the first level because trying to navigate through the bank was bad for me because I kept on going. I felt like I was going in circles, and then eventually I was able to make progress. I was spotted, trying to rescue a hostage multiple times, and the hostage was killed. And then eventually I was able to get, I think, to a bank vault. You had to do something with a bomb, and then it blew up, and then I'm like, what's going on? I mean, why is the happening? I mean, it just didn't feel good to me. I mean, the combat was, I think, decent, but I haven't played the game in a while to say too much about that. But what I did experience wasn't that great. I recently bought a Nintendo Power magazine about a month ago, which had some details discussing about how to play through the game. So I might go back with the Nintendo Power magazine to figure out what to do, but I haven't really cared to play the game ever since my initial playthrough. And so that's why the game is ranking quite high on this list, to be honest. And with that, we go to number 3, Castlevania 64. Now, it seems to me for some strange reason that most of the games on this list happen to be on the Nintendo 64. And I'm not sure why, because I enjoyed the N64. That was my first console. But I'm not sure why all these games are on here. Castlevania 64 is a game that I knew was bad, but I wanted to see how bad it was. And it lived down to my expectations, if that's what you want to call it. Or basically, it's not a great game. I died a couple times because of falling into the water, and that killed me instantly. But I progressed further in the game, but I stopped playing because I wasn't interested in it anymore. I wanted to play through the game, see how far I could get, but before the game, I guess you could say, if it gets good, I stopped before that even happens. And I know the game goes through a cycle of time, but I don't feel like going through a game, especially if you're going through Castlevania, wow, did I really just say that? Dracula's Castle. I don't want to have to worry about a time, because I think that if you don't beat the game within a certain amount of days, then you don't get the good ending. But I didn't feel like going through that hassle, so I decided just to stop playing altogether. And it wasn't that great. I mean, the combat was okay, but I've played Castlevania games, and this game didn't do wonders for me. It was easily one of the worst Castlevania game. Is the worst Castlevania game I've ever played, and one of the worst games that I've ever played, which leaves it at number 3. And this goes to number 2, which is Sonic R. This game was initially going to be number 1 on my list, but surprisingly, I found a game that was even worse than this. And yeah. Now, I knew the game was bad. I've seen how bad the game is. However, I still played the game. Now, granted, this was only because I played the game because it was on the Sonic Gems collection for GameCube. So I said, hey, this game is bad. Let me see how bad it is. Yeah. I don't really need to say much about this game because we know the controls are bad. That there really isn't too much to say about this game one way or another. It's just a bad racing game altogether. And I guess as I mentioned, the Sonic fighting game is also bad as well. If you have the Sonic Gems collection, then you'll probably know what I'm referring to. And now at number 1 of this list is Star Wars on the Game Boy. Now, from what I've heard, or at least looked up online, this is a port of Star Wars that was on the NES, which is why after looking up some of the gameplay, it looks similar as far as like stuff you had to do. It's just that this was made for the Game Boy instead. So technically, in a way, because I'm talking about this, I'm also talking about the NES version, but I have never played the NES version, so I can't really say if there are too many differences between that one and this one. Although I have heard that the NES version is bad, but I have seen that at the time when it was released, it was given favorable reviews. But all I know is that this game on the Game Boy is not good. I didn't like going around. I thought the game was a bit too difficult in some places. I don't like the fact that I actually had to look around to go find a lightsaber. The designs of some of the stages were a bit bad in my opinion. I really can't say too much about this because I just didn't like the game so much that first chance I got, I traded it back to GameStop. And actually, I bought this game back when GameStop still sold Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, so that was probably about 2006, so about 10 years ago when I first played this game. And it was just so... I did not enjoy this game at all. Seriously, I'll be honest with you. And the only good thing that was in this game, I would say, would be the music from the actual movie, because nothing else truly stood out for me. Nothing else was enjoyable for me, and yeah, that's it. That is my top 10 list of the worst games I've ever played. Do you agree with some of the items on this list? Do you have games which I didn't mention that you think are worse or somewhere on this list that should be there? Let me know your thoughts about that. Also, I will put the link for the video I made before. What was that? Oh yeah, live action adaptations of anime and manga in the description box. And until next time, everyone, I am iamxeracon signing off. Have a good one.